Hey guys, my name is Francisco Hernandez, and today's video is another episode in my Building the Shot series, going over a photo that I took at a recent photo shoot, my latest behind the scenes video on my channel, which is this shot on the screen right here of Anna. If you guys haven't seen the review on this lens, the viltrox 75 f1.2, that was used to take that shot of Anna, then I highly recommend it. Link will be in the description area below, as well as the top right corner of the screen. But before I continue, I do want to let you know that this video is sponsored by Adorama. Adorama is an industry-leading retailer that has been serving photography, videography, and audio customers for almost 50 years now. Their motto is everyone is a creator, including you. So they do their best to unleash that creator within us all by providing us with the tools and expertise necessary to get the job done. I personally shop at Adorama for both the great deals and products I use and recommend, but also the great customer service on those products as well. If you find yourself interested in any product that I talk about in today's video, check out the links that are going to be in the description area below, and be sure to use those links if you decide to order anything. Here's the image of just the ambient exposure of Anna in this spot. What you always want to do when it comes to using off-camera flash or lighting is do a two-step process of exposing for the ambient, then adding your lighting, again, continuous light or off-camera flash. And that just means adjusting your camera settings to you like how the background looks like. In this case, at ISO 50, f1.2, 1/4000th of a second, I originally thought that I wanted the sky to look like this. So then that's when you add your off-camera flash in this case. And depending on how bright or not the flash is, that's when you make your adjustment to either leave it exactly how it is if it's a good exposure, or if you increase the output or decrease the output. And in my specific case for this photo, obviously you can see that the flash was way too strong, so I needed to do a reduction. So I believe I do that in the next photo. I am at the same camera settings for this shot and this next one. So all I did again was just reduce the output of the flash. But in the next photo, one thing I did differently, I changed the ambient exposure. So originally I thought I wanted the sky to look like this at this level with this kind of darkness, or not darkness, but I felt like I wanted the ambient to look in the sky like this. But then I felt like it was a little too dark when I was looking at the images. So I reduced the shutter speed, and that gave me a little bit more ambient. It made the image a little bit brighter. So what that did was made my good exposure of flash right here in this photo to be a little bit brighter. When it comes to using off-camera flash, whenever you use high-speed sync, your flash kind of acts like a continuous light, so you have to treat it as such. So if you make a reduction in shutter speed, that means you also need to lower the output of the flash as well. So you have to adjust the flash as well as the other camera setting that you're going to be changing, whether it be ISO or shutter speed or aperture. In this specific case, of course, that was going to be the shutter speed. So I reduced the shutter speed, increased more ambient into the shot, and that made her more sensitive to that ambient and the flash. So I needed to reduce the output, and obviously I didn't, which resulted in this overexposure. So in the next photo, that's when I did that reduction in output, and that gave me a good exposure on her. But one key difference where I did that reduction in exposure on the flash compared to this previous shot is the camera settings. So it is going to be the exact same exposure, but with the fast shutter speed. So let me explain that. You can see that I am at ISO 50, 1/2500th of a second. Well, if you increase the shutter speed from 1/2500th to a stop darker, that's 1/5000th of a second. And if you increase the ISO from 50 to ISO 100, then that's one stop brighter. So that's exactly what I did in this next shot. It's the exact same ambient exposure, but I did reduce the flash. I felt like it was a little windy that day, so I felt like I could go to ISO 100 and just get a faster shutter speed. So that's exactly what I did. So at this point, the flash looks okay and everything else is good. I was having her keep the same pose because I had already determined I wanted her to kind of hold the hat. Again, it was windy, so it was kind of a pose plus also making sure the hat didn't fly away. And then I felt like the legs and the hand were good, so it was kind of the same pose while I was just fixing the settings. This next photo is only because one thing I was doing throughout those different shots that I just showed you is I was making a reel for Instagram. She knew this, I knew this, everybody was fine with it. So what I was doing was picking up my camera, actually, recording the behind the scenes, and then picking up my camera and showing the back of the screen and then taking a shot. So it was a little funky in the composition for this photo, but then this one where I really liked it, it is a little bit, crooked because I was taking the shot with one hand, but I really like this photo, and that's why I edited it for the video and I showed you guys the reel on Instagram. I will go ahead and break down everything that I did in Lightroom because it was lengthy, but I will go ahead and just skip the Photoshop because it's usually the same thing that I do in Photoshop, which is dodge and burn, maybe adjusting the color tones with selective color in Photoshop, and then maybe generative fill and maybe liquify. I'll skip that just to make the video shorter because actually the more important thing to me in this video is the things that I did in Lightroom. So let me go ahead and just show you guys that. And to be completely transparent with you guys, all those different shots that I showed you, they were all increased 1.25 in exposure, because this photo here that I made this adjustment to was bumped in exposure. And I wanted to just kind of show you guys, you know, how all those other shots look like in terms of those changes that I made at the photo shoot. And so that's why I changed all of those different photos the same amount that I did to this photo. But of course it is going to be a little bit darker like this, and all those other shots over there that I showed you previously, those were just, you know, a little bit darker, but same concept when it comes to like the lighting and the settings and everything else. Of course, one thing that I do to all my photos is increase the saturation in this section here, calibration. I changed to 80. Felt like the oranges and the blues were a little too strong. Add a little bit of sharpness right there. So in the HSL section right here, I reduced the oranges and the blues. The blues were kind of just over to here, not really in the sky. The sky was more magenta cyan. But the more important thing is the adjustment brushes, or adjustment brush adjustments that I did, which are again pretty lengthy. So I'm going to go to the adjustment brush section, which is going to be the shortcut K. That's going to be the shortcut to break out an adjustment brush, which you guys can see it here. And for anybody who doesn't know what the adjustment brush is, it's just a brush in Lightroom where you can paint on certain things throughout the image and then make adjustments in just that specific area where you painted over. In the case of this photo, I have a good amount. I have like, I don't know, 12 or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 12 adjustment brushes layers. So let's go ahead and just go through all those. So the first thing I wanted to change is I felt like the sky was a little too bright. So you can see that this is the before and this is the after. So obviously I did feel like it was a little too bright, and then I made that reduction for one big reason, and that's because when you reduce the sky exposure, more often than not you will get more saturation. So that was a kind of a benefit of reducing the sky's exposure. And I think earlier in the photo shoot, or earlier in this section of the photo shoot, I did want that sky to be dark, and then I felt like it was, you know, brighter. So I guess I was originally correct with my initial kind of thought process of wanting that sky to be a little bit darker. The very next thing I did was increase the shadows all around her. So you can see this is going to be the before and this is the after. I also increased the shadows of just her shorts. So this is the before right here. This is the after. I also felt like her face could use a little bit of extra exposure because there was a little bit of shadow area, but I did intentionally have the light at a certain level so that it was filling up the face. But I always wanted the eyes and the face to be more, you know, kind of like the highlight of the spotlight of the photos. So I did add a little bit of exposure twice in this layer. You can see that there. And also in, I think this one right here. So this one was more subtle. So you can see before and then after. It's kind of subtle. I also increased the exposure of everything around her, like the floor, before, after. I did that twice, so not just here and not just here, but I think also, okay, so those two areas. I also gave a little bit more pop in the eyes using these different settings. I wanted to make sure that the exposure wasn't too kind of bright on her chest because of the white shirt and the white fence. So you can see the before and the after of the reduction of that. And then I also increased the shadows of those areas on the fence on the left and right. So I felt like they were too dark and a little too distracting, so I brightened them up and made them more even throughout the image. So that's what I did there. And then I also felt like this board right here and the board on the bottom were a little too bright, so I just reduced that a little bit. And I still felt like the shirt was a little bright, so I reduced the whites by -20. And honestly, I can't really see a difference before and after from there, so maybe I should have just not done that. And then the very last thing was I increased the shadows and the highlights of the hat. So from here to here, I made the hat a little bit brighter because it felt it was a little too dark. And that's everything that I did to this photo. If you guys have any other questions about this photo, let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to see another building the shot over another photo that I took at this photo shoot, then let me know which photo. I actually have 2 other building the shot videos coming very soon, so that's something to look forward to. I want to give one last thanks to Adorama for sponsoring this video, because when they do that, it allows me to keep making free content for you guys. So definitely check them out. Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the very next video.